But it's taken me 2 hours to get here, and in the 2-hour drive, there was a lesson that was playing in my head, which is all of last, and it's not a new issue, to be honest. I've always known I put a lot of stock in how I show up for other people and like not letting people down and having like a certain standard for who I am as like a person, as a friend, as a family member or whatever. And last year it became very clear that it was still a problem. Like when I was younger, I was like a real people pleaser and stuff, but I very much thought I had worked through that because it sort of, I didn't notice it coming up. And then last year I noticed that it was just showing up again, that I was doing things that weren't in my best interest to serve other people's best interests. And then all of last year I kept saying, I'm going to stop doing it. I'm going to stop. And it very much was around like saying yes to things out of like guilt or obligation, knowing I kind of didn't have time or I didn't have the space for it. And I kept telling myself, I'm not doing this anymore. It's better. Like, again, this year is all my goals. I'm like, nah, this year I'm going to be better. Like started January, I was really good. And then I was saying that with you, right? We have organised this and I have cancelled it and rescheduled it like more times than I can count.
I think it's been about 3 times in 6 months. We've had to reschedule.
And that was like with me also probably not replying to you for weeks at a time in between, like just like pushing it out, And then like the lesson or the irony of it all is I have this reputation or image of myself that I want to support or that I'm afraid of not living up to. And then I've done it anyway. Like I probably just should have said no. I actually don't have the time, the capacity at the moment with what's going on in my life. I didn't have the time to show up for this. And instead of just owning that with you because I didn't want to let you down or I didn't want to let myself down, whatever it was, I said yes, and then I behaved in a way that let myself down anyway, let my standards down anyway. I fucking hate when people are late.
I guess you.
Yeah, it's like it's rude when you're late. It's rude to reschedule on people. It's rude to like cancel on someone 3 times and just schedule again, So I just think it's been on my mind a lot recently, just how much we create what we fear. Like whatever you're afraid of, the way you're afraid of it and the way that impacts your behavior will create it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It's that. It was, I'm afraid of letting people down. I'm afraid of not being this image of whatever that attachment is in my mind. And then because I wasn't honest about what I could do or not do, I created that anyway. Now, you might be understanding and it maybe doesn't affected you as much as I have interpreted it, but I've let myself down regardless, And I just feel like that happens all the time. It's the cliche of the girl, I don't know why I automate to girl, but the girl who's paranoid he's going to cheat on her. So she starts getting controlling and looking at his phone and treating him like he doesn't trust her. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, she doesn't trust me anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah. It's true.
The person who's like got the people pleasing, it's such a classic one. We people please because we want people to like us, to love us. We're afraid they're going to leave. And then everyone leaves because we're not being ourselves. We're not being genuine. We never end up with good relationships because we're overextending ourselves. We feel used by everyone. We feel let down. It's just, we just create what we fear.
And it's true because you've not wanted to do it because you didn't have the time. And then you've rescheduled 10 times because you want to upset or not rock up. But then, like you said, you've done what you didn't want to do.
In the first place. It took me 2 hours. The whole way here, I was just like, you already didn't have time for this, and now it's taking 2 hours, and then you got to come home. And I was like, you know what? This is happening because you just don't fucking learn your lesson. Again, same thing, whether it's the universe, whether it's your own subconscious, whatever you don't learn will keep getting smacked at you, and it'll get worse and worse and worse and worse until you understand. And it was all of last year I kept showing up. And it's happened again this year. And I'm like, fuck, when I leave here, when I go home tonight, I'm going to go cancel on like 10 people. Because I'd done it again. January, I was good. And February, I'm like, fuck. And I was thinking, and I was like, and what I always say to myself is, oh, well, I'll just leave the plans I've already made because that's rude, And I'll just be better next month. And then I might have a good month and then I do it again. It's fucking, anyone, whoever's listening to this, I'm holding myself accountable. It's been verbalized externally on the internet, so I fucking have to sort it out, It's just very funny.
It's for someone who helps people with these problems, serious. You think that, because I've tried to sort of do some things to help people as well, and sometimes you feel like you don't have the right to teach someone if you don't do it yourself. But we're not perfect. There's things that you're good at that I'm not, that maybe I can teach you and you can teach me. And what I've noticed is that the more of, so you watch videos and they always say that as long as you know 10% more than that person, or 3% or 5%, it was a low percentage, you can teach them something. And you can run a course and you can do all these things. But we just get caught up in our head saying, unless I can do something dramatic for them and I'm exactly that person that I'm teaching them to be, well, then I can't teach them. I need to be exactly that. Like, you've just proved that now.
Well, yeah, I think you need to be like embodied. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be trying. You shouldn't be telling people to do things you haven't at least tried.
Yeah, 100%.
You're always going to stay human. Like I said, this is a problem I've known for a long time, and I've done lots of work on. It's gotten a lot better, but it's not perfect. It still shows up. New levels, new devils. There'll always be a way that certain things are going to show up, and you're 100% right in. It's another layer of doing this for work is living with the making sure you don't fall into like shame or blame when you are human, because you will be human, you know. And you're right, I think there's a lot of people that can think, you know, we've got to be that perfectionism, I've got to be perfect before I can start doing something, whereas, you know, you're not going to get perfect unless you start, you're not going to get better unless you try, and no one's perfect anyway, right? And I think it's, again, gauging who you're working with. Like you said, you know, you don't work with someone who's well beyond somewhere where you are. You work with people that are in a range that you can handle to work with as well, you know. And there's always something to learn from everyone, you know.
100%. But do you think social media has done that? That made us think we have to be perfect in order to educate people and stuff? Because people have this perfect life of money and wealth and whatever it is. And they say that you start to feel like you can't teach anyone about wealth and money unless you've got millions of dollars. You know what I mean? What
I would say, though, is I do think there are some things that you shouldn't teach about if you don't know. Like, for example, if you're, like, calling yourself a business coach and you've never owned a fucking business...
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You're just phony.
It's like the school teachers, the business teachers in school.
Like, damn,
hey, business chat, miss?
Yeah.
Oh, I've had none.
None. That's it. Like, that stuff I actually do feel like is out of integrity. You know, I think there's a certain level of things that you... And things like money, sort of same thing. If you're in debt, you shouldn't be teaching people how to make money. You know what I mean? Like, if you're, like, fully in a mental asylum, you probably shouldn't be teaching people how to, like, manage
mental health.
Manage mental health. Not in that moment. Maybe in, like, 5 years when you're out. Yeah. And that's what's hard is, like, I'll circle back to the social media thing in a second. I think we want, like, hard and fast rules so we can feel sure. Like, I want to know 100% I'm good enough to do this before I go do it, so it's not as scary, you know? I want someone to tell me, like, after I've done this many hours, or I got this certificate, or I never have this problem again, I'm good enough, where I deserve my confidence, you know, as opposed to realizing that's all internal. Like, your confidence, your willingness, that's something that you need to work on. There's no certificate or moment in life or dollar amount that's going to give you that guarantee you're looking for. Has social media made that different? I think for you and I, that's probably impossible to answer because we've not really grown up that much without it. I'm going to say not completely, because I remember Instagram came in when I was in high school. So we had MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace was the first one.
We had MySpace. So even then, like, I've never been like an adolescent without some form of social media. So I don't know. That's a question for our parents. But I would hazard a guess that to a degree it's just human. So, like, comparison is innately it's a resourceful human thing. Like, you don't develop or grow as a species if you're just content. You kind of look at, oh, his fire's bigger than mine. I've got to make my fire bigger, or the women aren't going to want me. And she's got to be like, oh, I've got to be, you know, a better cook. Otherwise the king of the, you know, the king of the tribe's going to want to date that other chick. Like, that's just primal human running in nature that said, like, a certain level of healthy competition, I think, exists from an evolutionary perspective. So I think we always would have had an element of, like, be better, do better. But I certainly think that it would be impossible for social media to have not had an impact. And you're right in saying there's this real illusion of the quality of life that people are living because we're looking at highlight reels and fucking the Kardashians and we're watching their reality TV show thinking that we're seeing the worst parts of their lives, and then we're comparing ourselves to that. Like, there's no way that could not have had some sort of a an amplifying impact on that, you know? But I feel like if we asked our parents, they'd be like, yeah, we didn't care about shit like that. But because they were too busy just eating and surviving war.
Yeah.
So also,
I know my parents were in the war side of things, maybe.
but they were just...
No, but it was basics. Work, eat, sleep, see your mates. Like, it was nothing apart from that. You're always outdoors.
I think perfectionism is also probably a little bit of a... it's like a curse of the... what's the word I'm looking for? A curse of the privileged. You know what I mean? Like, if you're if you're in Africa and you don't have money to feed your family every day, like, you don't have the... I don't care if you are a perfectionist. You're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about food. Did everyone eat today? Is everyone alive? If you're in Gaza, just cool. Everyone alive today? Great day.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, like, even if you were a perfectionist, that's not there. I think that also probably has a little bit to do with, you know, I think I used the term new levels, new devils before, that in this new level of society where we have all this privilege, no part of us is evolutionarily designed to thrive in this environment. And I think perfectionism is one of those, you know, back in the day you might have had hunger in a first world country. Now we have perfectionism and insecurity and whatever. And we just are now learning how to solve those problems, you know?
It's a hard one. I think there are so many variables to it. I don't think it's the one thing. I think it's our genetics. I think it's a bit of social media. I think it's a bit of insecurities and people just being uneducated on their emotions, not knowing that these things all come from something.
Yeah.
You don't just happen to be angry all the time and that's just you. You know what I mean? There's always something that's come from. Was it childhood? Was it adulthood? Was it, you know what I mean? There's always something it comes from, but people just sweep under the rug because they'd rather just either use the drugs, alcohol, distract themselves from it and just move away, like act like it's not even there.
Yeah.
And I've noticed even recently, I had a conversation with someone who's in the bodybuilding scene and we're talking about how I said, I don't believe that people who are addicted to the gym is a healthy thing.
No.
It's a healthy habit, but when you're addicted to it, why are you addicted to it? What are you running from that's you're only getting that comfort in the gym?
Yeah.
And when I spoke to her, she goes, Peter, you have no idea, when I went to this competition, I've never seen such depressed, anxious, angry, emotional people in my life.
Bodybuilding is so bad for your health.
Yeah,
Just
and she done it
anyway,
once. She
so
had
bad for
these guys done it for 10 years. And she goes, it's terrifying. She goes, I thought, and even with herself, she goes, I came out of my competition. Obviously, I went to the competition at my lightest I've ever been and the best I've ever looked. Me getting to that physique, she goes, it caused me more anxiety and depression
Of course.
than
Starving
I had
yourself.
before.
Starving yourself.
Because I looked a certain way and my brain's like, okay, I need to stay like this now.
Yeah, and it's
it's
impossible.
impossible.
Yeah.
Because you'll die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's that, I don't know, I just see, and social media pushes it now, especially with men. And I know you deal a lot with men, where there's this thing around steroids now. I don't know if maybe your algorithm's a little bit different, but mine and a lot of other men's I've noticed is very much steroid use, testosterone, comparing steroids to alcohol and how much better it is for, like, just stupid shit. And it's like everything they do is obviously part of the algorithm, but just puts you in a place where you want this body that's unrealistic unless you do steroids, and they try to convince you that it's not as bad as it looks. And then you see all these guys jump on testosterone and stuff like that and don't realize that once you jump on, you're on. You don't come off. If you do the damage, you're not coming off it. And you get nervous because you're like, there's so much shit out there that convinces people to go down a path that they can't come back from. And what you notice with all this stuff, I don't know if we want to get into it, but there's a lot of things going on now where you can't take this stuff back.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And that's what I get scared about, because you can't even talk about it. You talk about it, people criticize you, abuse you, call you every name under the sun, but they forget sort of there's logic to it as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's so many things there. I'm like, which part do I jump on first?
The stuff with kids is the biggest one for me. I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it. But to me, what I want to focus on with you, which is stuff with men. I want to know from you because you've.
Do we want to introduce who I am?
Oh yeah, we started the conversation.
Everyone's like, I don't know who this bitch is. I don't know what she does. But it sounds like she's got some issues. So why am I taking advice from her? Is what everyone's thinking.
All right, so give us a bit of an overview.
She's fucking 6'0" and 5'0" and has no
Needs a
idea.
booster seat.
Literally, guys, I'm really short. Need some camera issues before we started. So just like, let's pause and start here and go again. So hi guys, I'm Nadia. I am a mental fitness and performance coach. I have an undergrad in psychology. I worked in HR for 6 years. I have worked in coaching for 6 years and had my own very colourful life history. Like you said, everything happens for a reason. Every positive and negative thing about us is not an accident. There is a contributing factor and pattern that exists. And I had lots of patterns based on how I grew up and things that happened. And I think going into the people-pleasing thing that I spoke about at the start, it ties in. I think I've always been wired to put others above myself because of my childhood, which is a very socially acceptable, socially praised thing. It's like the gym thing that you said, right? The issue with being a people pleaser is you get so much positive feedback for it. Oh, you're so selfless. Oh, you care about people so much. Oh, you're so altruistic, this, that, and the other, right? It's like going to the gym. It's hard to, if I'm a heroin addict, it's easy to be like, she's got a problem. But if my problem is doing everything for everyone around me, that's pretty hard to see as a problem when it's really serving you,
True.
And then this wound led me to my career path with psychology and coaching and all those things. And obviously now I'm sort of finding that barrier of making it a healthy thing for myself rather than an unhealthy thing, And yeah, I've worked in the industry for 6 years and my journey as a coach has definitely evolved. I started very mindset, thinking about problems, and as I've progressed, gotten a lot more into emotional, nervous system, like all that pattern recognition stuff that you were talking about then, And you're right in saying I do work predominantly with men. I do work with women as well. I have an online community, which is just definitely, funnily, I think group things tend to attract more women. So in the group space, there is more women there, but in my one-on-one space, I would be like 70-30 men to women. And again, I think everything happens for a reason. I think I had a lot of challenges with influential men in my life and also a lot of challenges with women and kind of fit in that world better, spoke to men better, worked in construction for 6 years. And just, I guess it always fascinated me. Even now, men's problems are simpler. Men's solutions are simpler, not easier, like hard, but like simple. And if you can explain something to a man in well enough terms, a lot of the time he'll just go do it. Women are a much more complex beast. They take a lot more work, a lot more patience, And though I am one, and God help my boyfriend, I enjoy the simplicity of men and the work we do together much more. And I think also societally we fall into certain things based on what we're seeing. And I think I found myself looking around at the world these days thinking men were getting a rough go of it, like we're pointing a lot of fingers at them, patriarchy this, toxic masculinity that, and not actually giving them the support or the education to move through demonizing things that they shouldn't be demonized for, and not a lot of empathy for how hard it would be to be a man in today's society where it's like not just financially supporting your family and showing up and being all those traditional man things, because please still be that, be tall, be muscly, be great in bed, have lots of money, but also be emotionally intelligent and be supportive and, don't be too masculine, don't be too feminine. I just think we were asking a lot of them. And I think that as much as men need to see men as the right role models, I think we also live in a world where men need to see women compassionate to that and understanding of that and appreciative to them to that and helping them on that journey rather than like pointing fingers and demonizing and just like furthering this separation that I think has been happening with the genders. Like, maybe was feminism well-intentioned at the start? I guess we'll debate that on another day, but it's certainly, I don't believe in the long run it's actually playing out the way it's supposed to play out. I think it's very often more divisive than it is coming together. And the reality is no one wins when the other gender loses. It's like a relationship. No one wins if one person wins. It's all communal, all interests are shared. And I guess that's sort of the role and path I've carved out both like personally and as a coach.
What you just said there was perfect, because there's this agenda going on about men versus women and how a men's life's so much harder or a women's life's so much harder. But it's, like you said, if one side wins, then both people really lose.
Correct.
You know what I mean? There's no winning in this.
No winning, no.
Because the only way to win is to realise that we've both got our roles. The things that we can do that you can't do, things that we can do that both vice versa.
Correct.
We can't do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like I listened to a video yesterday and she was explaining how the house you're in right now is built by a man. The road you drive on was built by a man.
Maybe not anymore, but yeah.
Maybe not anymore because things are trying to change over.
Yeah.
And he explained how then it goes into how we have different roles. Our roles are to stay home, take care of the kids, make sure we raise good kids, not let them get brought up by the system. And I think you can go into the conspiracy theories behind it all, but why schools were created. You know what I mean? Like you look into all this stuff and you sort of start to see the trend about why they wanted mothers in a job. Mothers are always at home. My grandparents, you don't hear about any of their friends, the wife's working and husband's at home. Never. I don't think I've ever heard of a couple they were born in the 40s, whatever it was, that had that sort of relationship. But it worked. Obviously there was negatives to that as well. I don't think they necessarily treat each other the way they should have in that generation too. It was more like, I come home, I sit down, I do nothing.
Yeah.
And you do everything for me. I didn't agree with that. You can come home and still help out a little bit, but they just had this mindset that
there was role.
The plates on the table, you clean, I go have a shower, I go to bed, you do the rest. So I said it's positive and negative of everything. But it's to realise that, again, we both have our roles.
I think something you said there, like, there is a positive and negative of everything. This is what I'm more about, because the reality is, you know what, we actually can all do the same things, but there is a different cost. And that's the part that I have a thing about. Like, I work, I own a business, I do all the things that a traditional woman like should not do, but I also face the consequences of that personally, with my health, with my well-being, within my relationship. Now, at this point in my life, those are consequences that I accept. But for me, the issue societally is like the denial of that. Like this idea that a woman can do everything a man can do at no negative consequence to anyone, right? With the whole house thing, regardless of who should be home, like someone should be home with a child, and there is objectively a detriment to the child when they are raised by a government body, which is essentially what a school and a childcare is, and not by their family and their friends and people, right? There just is a consequence to that. Now, my problem with today's society is our ignorance to the consequences and getting swept up in, forget the conspiracy or not the conspiracy. Let's not deny there's consequences. For example, I'm in a relationship where both of us own a business. There is serious consequences to that. There is limited time and energy that can go into the relationship. That means we go on less dates, we make less effort, we have less energy, we have less patience, we're more likely to fight, because usually, traditionally, the woman's role was to be focused on the relationship and the man's role was to be focused at work. And that meant that the whole, in terms of the relationship and money coming in, it was all being nurtured. And when you make different decisions, there's gonna be costs. And for me, like, that's the bigger problem. I think that in the world that we live in, everyone has the right to make their own choices. I don't like this whole nanny state, let's govern and law everything and tell people what they should be able to put in their bodies, how they should raise their children, all that stuff. I don't like it. Everyone do whatever you want. If you want to swap your gender roles and you want to both work, you want to whatever, but I want you to be honest with yourself about what that's doing to your kids, to your life, to your health, to your whatever. And I want you to choose both of those things fully, because I think that's what social media, that's what the danger of this all is that we're doing all these things without knowing what it's costing us, and then we're complaining about the consequences. You both want to go to work, you both want to have a kid, then you want to be surprised when eventually you get divorced because no one was willing to give up anything to make it different. Or when your kid goes off the rails because neither of you are actually around energetically enough to spend time with that person. When you take steroids and then you're surprised when your dick stops working, or when you're a girl who gets breast implants and her lips done and then all of a sudden you got migraines and gut issues and you can't get pregnant and you're surprised why. You know, like, do whatever you want, but when you do it, know the consequences and then don't complain when you get them. That's what it is for me. You know,
That's a good way to put it. Because you've got situations where everyone goes into things, they hear it, oh, that's cool, I'm going to do it. There's no research, there's no second thought, they just jump onto it.
Yeah, I saw an Instagram post. This is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, it looks cool, let me do that.
Yeah.
I want to get bigger, let me take steroids. Oh, because this guy said it's safe. And they just do it. And it sounds silly and you think that doesn't happen. But if you want to prove it right, think about everything you've done and ask yourself, did you actually do the research before you jumped on? And how long was the research? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Did you look at the first thing that came up on Google? Is steroids safe? You know what I mean? Like, are steroids safe? Maybe not.
And another thing that I do think is very social media based is like, people have too short a feedback loop. Like, you think, I took steroids today, nothing bad happened tomorrow, all good. But you're not thinking about 20 years from now when you've got cancer and autoimmune disease and your dick stopped working and you're pissing yourself and your back hurts because you got arthritis and you're like, oh, this just happens. Aging. Like, no, this is because of the drugs you did, because of the steroids you jabbed, because of the food you ate, because of the exercise you didn't do. Nothing is inconsequential. Nothing is by accident. And we forget that loop and we don't look far enough in advance. And I think because, you know, TikTok, I've got to get your fucking attention in 13 seconds or you're not going to watch my shit, you know, like, we have that sort of feedback loop. And I find that so much encouraging when I'm trying to get someone to change, especially around like food and stuff. Trying to get someone to understand how detrimental to something is when they're not going to feel better as soon as they stop. It's so hard. If it's something that like you can do it right now, like this is why everyone loves breath work, because you lie down, you do breath work, you feel this full experience and you're convinced I've found the thing, right? But it's just instant gratification. My opinion, meditation in a lot of situations in the long run, more impactful, but it doesn't feel good straight away. You'll probably hate it for 6 months before you realize it works. And we don't have that kind of ability to delayed gratification or see the feedback. Like, it takes a lot of work to make that person realize, oh yeah, that thing I started 2 years ago and I've done consistently for 2 years, that's why my life is like this now. Or you look at someone like me and you think, oh, it's all so easy. You don't know. You don't know what I've been doing for the last, how old am I? 31. So like the last 13 years. You don't know what I did 13 years ago to have the success you look at now, or the discipline that you look at with me now, and you go, oh, you don't get it. That's so easy.
It's true.
Yeah.
No one believes it. They won't look back and say, like, where you came from.
Yeah.
So I just think, oh, it was easy for her. She's got it now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I started this 13 years ago. But what the comment you made about meditation, I actually believe in that, because it took me about 8 months to really start to enjoy meditation and actually see the benefits psychologically of, wait a second, I used to have all these issues with overthinking, but now
I remember.
it just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And then, but after just say a month of stopping, it starts again and you got to get back into it.
You can't stop, yeah.
But it just took me so long to get to that stage where I didn't even know what I was going to achieve at the end. I just knew I had to do something to help relax my mind a bit, because it will just go crazy. And everything does that. Food, exercise, outdoor. Like, there's so many variables that make you think like that.
What made you stick to it?
I got to a point where I was in such a dark place where I just said, enough's enough. And that's when I actually went to come see you. So I tried like 3 people before you, and I hadn't actually gotten much from it because the techniques I didn't really like and I didn't really enjoy it. And a lot of the stuff felt like more hypnosis than actually working through and learning about yourself. But I don't believe that anyone will ever change until they're fed up with themselves. You can't, if it's not that bad, you won't change. It has to be that bad where you're like...
I don't know if I agree with this.
No, but I'm saying for me.
Yeah,
for me.
you,
but a lot of people that I know,
yeah,
they only change when it's like if I don't change, bad's gonna happen.
Unfortunately. It's my mission to make that stop happening.
It's hard because you don't see the issue with it, but you know something could happen if you keep going down this path.
The cost, yeah, you don't care.
But you're like, but it's bad now. Now it's bad. Yeah. I've got to do something about this. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I just think the reason you helped me and the way you helped me was because you worked through it with me. I came to you with my 500 problems, and you said you categorized it into just say 5, and you're like, okay, well, this is why this is happening. This is why that's happening, and we worked it out. Instead of saying, no, this is why it's happening. That's why it's happening. Like me and you sort of work through it. I think a lot of these practitioners get into a habit of telling you your problem.
Yeah.
Not letting you sort it out.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you your problem, and you can tell anyone their problem. You have to let them work it out naturally.
Yeah.
And guide them.
Yeah.
You know what it is, but you guide them to the answer. You know what I mean? You just push them a little bit to it.
Yeah. You got to ask the right questions. I remember someone who mentored me early on would say you can't do the push-ups for them. Can't do the push-ups.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do the push-ups for them. So you got to ask the right questions to get them to come to the conclusion. And we all do it. As a coach, there'll be moments where you just give them the answer and you know, and we're going to deal with that lesson again, aren't we? Later, you're like, fuck, when it comes up again, this is my fault. It's my fault because at the end I got impatient and I fucking pushed you there, you know? Yeah, you got to let them figure it out. Because it's that I think, again, human nature is to struggle. Like, I think we have to struggle through things. And I think, again, that's part of why today's society is having such a hard time, because there isn't any inbuilt struggle. So we've created our own with our mental health problems. And then when you create the right amount of struggle or work within yourself, even if that's just figuring out who you are, in that, again, there's like purpose and grit and satisfaction and all those things that come and you get yourself out the other side. And yeah, I'm a big believer. And I wonder, I think it's everyone, but I think particularly for men, that whole understanding piece, like what you said, is just like so bang on. It's like they need to understand the pattern and the why, and then how that can be unlearned, like on a very practical. And then what I've learnt later, which is probably came more after you and I had worked together, is more, then you actually also have to do somatic work. You then have to work on the body. You got to do deeper stuff like meditation or breath work or yoga or whatever, because even sometimes you can fully understand the problem and why it happened and what you should do, and you still are just stuck in the same cycle. That's when you need body work, because the nervous system holds on to experiences and your subconscious holds on to experiences, and you run those patterns below your prefrontal cortex where understanding and conscious thought is happening, you know? So also that there might be some people that are listening to this and like they just are a certain way and they're like, they don't know why. Cool, start there. Like that's level 1, understand. But if you're like, I do understand and I'm still doing it, then you want to be looking like nervous system work, somatic work. You want to be getting a little bit deeper.
Yeah, okay. So that's the sort of struggle I'm going through now. Is that I know I can self-analyze myself enough to know where it's come from. But to actually stick to and action it and follow through is a part that I will sort of struggle with.
It's nervous system, that's why.
Yeah, I'm just like, whether it's laziness too, it's like I can't be bothered doing this. I know what I need to do every day. Like I cannot be bothered. But I know I feel good if I do it. Yeah. If I do my ice bath, if I do my meditation and train, my whole day's, that half an hour is a whole different day for me. But to get myself into that uncomfortable situation takes a lot of energy. Wake up earlier, do all these things, just like I can't be bothered.
And that also can be your nervous system, because like when the nervous system is tired, dysregulated, under a lot of strain, one of the settings that it has is to slow you down, is to hold you back, to keep you in what you know, because what you know is safe. So when we think about things like self-sabotage, knowing we should but not being able to, again, a lot of that time it's because it's not a conscious decision-related problem anymore. It's actually like you have this long, it's like you've got a computer and there's a software, and until you actually uninstall that software, you're going to keep running that pattern, and you need to do like body work, somatic work to get that stuff out. So that's more, meditation's great. That's definitely one of those things that help, but sometimes you need more than that. You need breath work, you need yin yoga, you need like more, you can do like timeline therapy and different sort of somatic practices with coaches. So I don't think I was doing that stuff when you
No,
and I
so
were
you
together.
started that all after.
Afterwards,
All you
yeah.
used to do was more like you were learning the tapping at that stage.
Yeah.
You started doing the sound bowls and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
got you sort of right at the start of all this stuff.
And because what happened is I had the same experience as you, right? I would get people to a point, and then they weren't getting the rest of the results, and then
Okay.
you know what I mean? It would
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
a point. Same with you, right? We got you to a point. There was all this understanding, but there's this element that is still playing out, and that's when I really started to learn about the nervous system, about what it is, how it works, why we get stuck in those patterns, and exactly what you need to do in order to release those experiences from the body.
Because it gets trapped into your physical body.
Yeah.
And even something that freaked me out recently, and I mentioned it on another podcast, is how your DNA can store data. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about that?
It's like epigenetics.
And even
right?
organs can store data and memories.
Or even like heart transplant patients and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I've heard about that.
And it freaks you out because people
Heart
have had
memory or something, yeah.
Yeah, and they've had memory like these dreams, and it was other person's memory.
Yeah, I've read that stuff, yeah.
See, that's what freaks me out about the human body. And even
So wise.
it's just crazy.
But even things like, if you start to learn about like yoga and meridian lines and stuff, like, for example, I have lower back issues. I've also felt unsupported my whole life. That's why I'm a people pleaser. Like there's a lot of, if you start looking into like metaphysical anatomy, when you start, and it sounds all woo caca at the start. You're like, turn this bitch off now. She was making some logic at the start, talking about gender roles. Now she's talking about fucking my hips hurt because my mum did some shit to me. But when you actually...
I've been carrying a family my whole life.
Yeah, but it's actually like, it's actually scientific. Like when you start reading some of these things, it becomes undeniable of, we had a yoga teacher on my community the other day, and she was talking about that, like, you got a problem here, it's because of this, you got a problem there because of that. And when you start looking into it, like, damn, that is true. There is a lot of that wisdom because the mind and the body are intrinsically connected. Again, this is an education we don't get in our society, really. This idea that your mind is one thing, your body is another thing. But why is it that when you exercise, your mind gets quiet? You do something to your body and something happens to your mind. Why is it that you start getting upset and your body, you get tired and you get sore and you don't lose your energy? Like, we know if you pay attention, there is this bi-directional response that's going on. And if you start paying attention, every time you have an emotion, there is a sensation in your body. When you feel anxious, you probably get...
where you get that feeling.
You might get tight in your chest,
Yeah.
or when you get upset, you might get a lump in your throat. When you're happy, your posture's open, your chest is open, It's called a feeling because there's feeling, there's sensation that comes along with it. But we've been taught feelings are these words we put in our head. I'm happy, I'm sad, like this word that you say. We have a feeling and we start thinking. That's not how you feel.
Yeah, okay.
Feeling is in your body. So again, what happens in the nervous system? You experience events. And if you don't know how to regulate yourself through those events, your body gets into a state of stress or shock or protection. And then what happens is that just gets stuck and you just keep running that same pattern. Whereas when you actually know how to regulate yourself through an experience, it happens and it goes. So the word trauma, right? Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is not rape, terrorism, attack, child abuse. Trauma, went that way. Trauma is what happens inside you when an event is occurring, which is why you can have a trauma from being forgotten at the shopping centre. It's not a big deal, right? Your mum found you 2 minutes later. It was 2 minutes. That can become a traumatic incident. Because if you're a little kid and you get scared and you think she's left you there and you don't know what to do and your body starts freaking out, your heart starts pumping, you start crying, and then mum comes back and mum's freaking out. So instead of giving you a hug and letting you know it's okay, mum's like, where did you go? Why did you walk off on me? What did you? Then you're like, fuck. And then do you know what you learn? People leave. It's your fault. If you get upset, people get angry. The rest of your life, when someone gets upset, you go, don't get upset. People get angry when I get upset. That's why I don't do that. And that's you. Oh, that's your personality. No, I don't get upset about that stuff. Because of this one thing that happened when you were a kid that you didn't regulate yourself through properly.
Most of it would come from childhood, wouldn't it?
Predominantly, like we obviously can experience traumas afterwards, but below the age of 7 in particular are very, very formative. At that point, your brain is in like different brainwave states. So everything you're kind of experiencing is like straight into the hard drive at that point. And then after about 7, you kind of get the more conscious mind, and there's more filtering of what should come in and what shouldn't. But you also can experience traumas in later life, but often you're just kind of reconfirming traumas you already had, if that makes sense,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like you might have an incident, like for example, you're in a terrorist attack or something
a car
like that,
accident, or
or you have this really like, negative relationship. But a lot of the time it's like you probably got into that relationship because of some pattern you got from your parents back in the day that you didn't realize. And then I can't remember if were we talking about you create what you fear when we was recording or not?
Oh, I don't know if we started then.
I don't know if I was recording. Yeah. So
So
I was saying that we often create what we fear. And the examples I gave is, for example, with me at the start, I'm afraid of letting people down, of not being this good girl, contributing member of society. So then I was late. I cancelled on you. I was unreliable. I created what I feared. I gave the example of the girl who's got cheated on by her ex-partner. So with the new guy, she doesn't trust him. She's always asking where he is, fighting. She's checking his phone. Eventually he goes, she doesn't trust me anyway. What's the point? Starts doing it anyway,
Does that happen pretty often?
In my experience these days, like I want to say 100% of the time, but I'm not going to because nothing's ever absolute. But honestly, 95% of the time, whatever you're afraid of, your fear of it is what makes it happen. And when we explain this from a nervous system perspective, child that got left at the supermarket is now constantly afraid people are going to leave. Because that was so scary. They felt abandoned and they were left alone. Now they have this story in their nervous system. So the nervous part of the nervous system is the amygdala. The amygdala in the brain is like scanning all the data. Like it's looking, is this safe or is this dangerous? Is this safe or is this dangerous? Every second of every day. And what is it deciding is safe? The things that have previously been safe. What is it deciding is dangerous? The things that look like something that happened in the past. So for this person, their partner doesn't text them back for 10 minutes. This looks like that time your mum left you at the supermarket. Panic, 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 panic. To someone else, you didn't text me back for 45 minutes, 2 days, I don't care. I don't think you did. Why? Because my nervous system has a previous experience that it has marked as unsafe. And now I spend my whole existence looking for that same thing to happen again. And again, why? As a human, your primary role is to stay alive. That's it. That's your only job. Your nervous system, I look at it like your internal alarm system. It helps you stay alive. So back in the day, you learned that if I walk at night alone and I see a lion, that's dangerous. So your brain, your amygdala goes, night, lone, lion, dangerous. So then it's night, amygdala goes, this is dangerous. Oh, I'm not alone, all good. Oh, you're alone, it's getting dark, all dangerous, right? So it's designed to keep you safe, but the problem is, what a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old thought was safe. The conclusions they came to about certain circumstances aren't necessarily real, accurate, whatever, And the key to all of this not happening is ideally you have at least two, if not like more than that, but you have present caregivers who are attuned and nurturing and regulated themselves. They keep you safe. They make you feel loved. They accept you for exactly who you are. How many of us had parents who did that? We're both ethnic.
It's pretty rare.
We have ethnic parents.
Rare.
So we had WOG parents are at best, they loved you by smacking you with a shoe. Right? Now, they did their best with the tools they had available to them, but there's so many things in our environment that we never got told. And when I say regulate, what I mean by that is learning what to do when something happens outside that's scary, how do we go and feel safe again inside of us? Right? So things like breathing, meditating, closing our eyes, feeling into our body, like giving us a hug from our parents, like just learning how to actually process what just happened, not avoid it, ignore it, get yelled for it, be told it's fine, you know? And then as an adult, the thing that most of us, you know, one, yeah, it's important to know like why you are the way you are and where that came from. But more important than that is to learn how to regulate your emotions and how to regulate your nervous system.
So with men, I know with women, obviously they'll go through their cycles. Mm-hmm. I think it's women the 30-day cycle, 28-day cycle, men a 24-hour cycle.
Yes, well, they compare it to like, you know, because of our periods, we have like, we feel different things in different parts of the week. Yeah. Whereas so, men just rise and fall with the sun.
So do you find that sort of worse with men compared to women? So, sorry, women compared to men? To regulate emotions and stuff like that?
No. Because yes, I think women might naturally have more emotions, like because of the way our brains are wired and hormones in certain points, but men and women these days are equally bad at regulating their emotions, you know, because men are just taught the classic overthinking man, these days a lot of my understanding of it would be like that man was never made to feel safe, acknowledged, like his feelings were okay. So he's just in his own head trying to sort it out with himself all the time, like everything's fine. The whole toxic masculinity is just a bunch of men who were never taught that feelings were okay, never taught how to regulate. The only feeling that was socially acceptable was rage, so they're angry.
True, yeah.
Same as women are not allowed to be angry, so they cry.
Okay, yeah, when you look like that, yeah.
That's what our nervous system learnt was safe. A lot of girls learnt it's not okay to be angry. Girls don't do that. We cry. Guys got taught boys don't cry, so they don't cry, they get angry. But a human has a healthy human has a full rainbow of emotion that they're totally okay with experiencing, that they don't shame themselves for, that they're not embarrassed about, that they're not scared of. And when they come up, when they're scared, when they're stressed, when they're anxious, when they're angry, when they're sad, when they're happy, when they're excited, when they're horny, when they're whatever, they're like, ooh, okay, cool. I can sit here in silence and be sad and it's okay. Whereas we go, sad is bad. I need to fix sad. How do I make sad go away? Or you might not even that much conscious awareness. You just start to feel like before you even realize you're pulling for your phone because your subconscious is starting to register an emotion and you never got instructed what to do with that. So you get on social media, you text that chick, you drink a beer, you smoke a joint, you go to the gym, whatever and I liked what you said before, addiction is not what you're addicted to, it's why you're doing it.
Did we record that?
Yeah, I think you did.
I think we got that one.
Yeah, you did say that part. Yeah, you said that at the start. So like one of the number one things is, okay, very basically, you know how you feel your feelings? It is right now, right? Feeling your feelings is literally something happens. You might not always be able to do this in the moment because you're at work or whatever. But you sit in the car after work and you close your eyes and you go, how am I feeling? What happened today? And you remember that thing your boss said. And you play it in your mind. And as you play it in your mind, feel into your body. What do you notice? Oh, my chest is getting tight. I feel a bit hot. Just, okay, cool. Just feel it. Where is it? Okay, it's in my heart. Feels like it's like the size of a tennis ball. It's kind of throbbing. Like just describe the sensation. Feel it. And then once you've felt it, and I would usually say stay there until the feeling starts to dissipate a little bit, right? So when you start paying attention to it, it might get stronger. And this is what freaks people out, right? You're already angry and you think angry is not allowed. I can't deck my boss. So when I get in the car and I start getting more angry, I'm like, fuck, I need to calm down. I'm going to turn on a podcast. You're not calming down. You're cramming it in, and then you're holding on to it. And that's why you just like pop off later, because you're not actually offloading these emotions. You're just stockpiling them. Whereas when you stop and you close your eyes and you feel into your body And you breathe into the sensation. You might even touch it. If it's in your chest, you might put your hand in your chest and you just breathe into it. And it starts getting more and your body's like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. Oh, fuck. Then your brain starts thinking, and you just keep breathing and you keep going. And then it will usually, like, not always, but very, very often, it'll like peak and then it'll like trough off. You're like, oh, okay, it's like getting lower. Okay, cool. And then you might go, why did I feel like that? Oh, I felt like my boss disrespected me and I worked really hard on that thing and like I didn't appreciate that he did that. Okay, do I need to do anything about this? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to let him know tomorrow that like I felt like he could have handled that a little bit better. But we go straight to why and what should I do about it, and we don't actually feel.
Yeah. Well, we try, like I said to you before, you try, like you said, you drink, you smoke, you do gym, you try to have something to avoid that feeling. And I heard a quote recently that said, trauma will get passed down through generations until somebody's ready to feel it.
Yeah.
And people think that you've got this anger in you and you've got this emotion in you and you keep pushing it down, that you're just going to have to deal with it. It doesn't happen like that. When you have a kid, most likely your kid's going to have the same issue.
100%.
And that's why it goes. Trauma is going to get passed down until somebody's ready to feel it.
100%. And
when I always grew up in a family where the men were very much, they didn't cry.
Yeah.
They didn't cry. Not like they didn't sort of say, don't cry, but you mimic them.
Yeah, yeah.
And when they go through something. So when I was going through all my stuff with the meditation, I just remember I was doing a meditation and it wasn't anything with words, it was just sound. And all of a sudden I had these overwhelming sensations coming through my body, like anger, frustration, sadness, happy, like everything just flooded in. And I just smiled after, like, what the hell just happened there?
Yeah.
And it was such a weird feeling, but after that time, I spoke to someone, and that was sort of the time where I was sort of grieving about my grandfather. And he said to me, he goes, normally that will happen when your body's finally released what you're holding on to about your trauma. And after that point, my whole life changed. And it was just that one moment I needed, just to let everything out.
Well, you needed to feel safe to feel.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, like for a lot of people, say like I said that thing about sensations and you're like, I don't feel anything in my body. Cool. You are so disconnected from your physical body. That's your first problem. If you say you don't feel anything, like you're like numb or monotone, or you do get angry and stuff, and then if I asked you to find it in your body, you're kind of like, there's no sensation in my body, I'm just angry, you know? You're so disconnected from your body. And that's something like meditation forces you to sit with yourself and like be in your body.
Feel every part of your body.
Breath work forces you to be in your body and reconnect in your body. Yoga forces you to slow down, to get into your body, be in your body. Exercise to a degree, but it's too far, like in my opinion, it's too fast paced. You do get like it is a regulation for your nervous system, it is a release, but it's not really like coming back to like deep connection with yourself and sensitivity to sensations and stuff. So if like none of that's, a lot of what we're saying is not landing, it's because for you, you're so disconnected from your body. Like you're at that stage that you were before that, where it's like, don't know how to feel, that's not safe at all. And you just need to start with actually like getting back in the body. And same thing, it could actually just look like closing your eyes for 3 minutes and just sitting. But for most people, like that sounds so simple, but that's actually like petrifying and hard. And learning something like meditation or breath work or yoga can be an easier place to start because you have something to do that then bridges you into that experience. But ultimately, and this is actually was my epiphany from this morning, that again, I know, but we will be reminded of lessons because human, you know, is you also can't use these tools to bypass just experiencing what you need to experience. And what I mean by that is I had something happen earlier just a couple of weeks ago that's been very sad, and I've been feeling very sad. And my tactic has been, okay, I'll meditate, I'll do breath work, I'll do yoga, I'll journal about it. And I'm like, I'm still sad. And then I'm like, the thing me and my coach were talking about this morning, I'm like, yeah, you just stop trying to fix it. You're just sad. You're experiencing grief, and these tools are not to fix it. They're not to not be sad anymore. They're not to be angry, not be angry anymore. Yes, naturally you become more level and you spend more time in the middle ground and you're more in control of yourself. So for example, I'm sad, but I am still meditating every day. I'm still eating the same food, good right food. I am still sleeping. I have the capacity to still show up 100% with discipline and will, even though all I want to do is lie down and sleep. I can keep going, you know? But that's also like ultimately what all of this stuff is about, is teaching you to be with yourself in the full rainbow of what that is and accept all emotions as they come, all mistakes, all thoughts, and be like, yeah, okay, that's what we're doing right now, you know? And hopefully not acting on those things. So for example, being angry and going like punching out your neighbor, you know?
Yeah.
But you will be angry, and that's the other thing. I think people go into this work wanting to, I just want to fix it. I don't want to be sad anymore. I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't have problems anymore. Nah, that's not how it works. This work is just about creating enough space inside yourself so you can handle being a human in a way that it is heaps more pleasant. Heaps more pleasant compared to what it was for me 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Even at my worst, it'll never be anything like my worst used to be, because I just am okay with feeling it. And I know this too shall pass. Who's that, Gandalf or something? It will pass. Where there's summer, there's winter, where the tide goes in, the tide goes out. There will always be quote unquote positive emotions, quote unquote negative emotions. You just become comfortable with the entire range of those things. And yeah, sometimes it is actually just about, in the early phases, do all these things, do all the tools so that you can actually like handle it. And then at some point, like when you get to where I am, it's actually just about doing nothing sometimes.
And just feeling it. Do you know, you actually gave me that advice 5 years ago?
Of course. It's heaps better to fucking, if I did everything I told other people to do, let me just say I'd be Mahatma Gandhi.
No, you know why? Because you said to me, because I was trying it with my anxiety.
Yeah.
You're like, I was trying to fix it, and how can I fix it? And you're like, just feel it.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix it, just let it pass.
Yeah.
And I was so fixated on just like, okay, I'm feeling a certain way, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to do these things. And you said to me, you said, relax, let it pass, feel the feeling, and it'll pass. And then as I got used to doing that, that's when I stopped getting anxiety.
Yeah. It's only, and that's like you create what you fear.
Yeah.
Again, I have so many clients, they're scared of anxiety, so they get anxious and they get anxious about getting anxious, and then there's this fucking cycle. Whereas if they were just like, yeah, whatever, then they'd get anxious, but it would be over so much faster. It's pain times resistance equals suffering. So pain is an inevitable part of life, but pain lasts like 30 seconds. It's the fact that you're sad that you're sad. You're disappointed that you're not happy like you were before. It's like, I always think about this with a breakup, right? It's like, you're sad because they're gone and you want them back. Like it's your lack of acceptance that they're gone that's making you so sad.
Yeah.
They just are. They're gone. That's it. If you just accept your new circumstances, all of a sudden it's not sad, but you can't stop holding on to what you had before and wanting it to come back, and that's the thing that hurts. Your attachment is the thing that hurts. And that's what I think meditation teaches the best out of everything, is non-attachment. Because again, a common misunderstanding, I believe, of meditation is the goal is to have this silent Zen experience where you are one with fucking the beings above, right? And if you're not, you're not doing it right. It's not for you. Whereas for me, and what I learned from my meditation teacher, is meditation is about detaching from the thoughts and the feelings that come up when you're doing the meditation and just staying in what you're in. So whatever you're focused on.
Being present, basically, isn't it?
Being present, that's it. So thoughts come up, feelings come up, and you go, I'm not doing that right now, I'm doing this. Thoughts come up, feelings come up. I'm not doing that right now, I'm doing this. And you just stop being attached to the feelings that come up, to the thoughts that come up. And then that's what plays out. At the ultimate level of presence, a breakup wouldn't bother you. Because they're gone, great. In this moment, appreciate everything this moment has. The last moment
you're
doesn't
exist.
You're holding on to the past.
Yeah.
There's no anxiety if you're not in the future. There's no sadness if you're not in the past.
It's so simple, but we overcomplicate it.
And it's simple, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Because presence takes so much training And every element of your life is designed to teach you the opposite. While you're driving, you're listening to a podcast and then you're thinking at the same time. While you're eating, you're watching TV. While you're talking to your partner, you're thinking about what you're going to say back.
Yeah.
You are.
We do so many things at once.
You are what you practice. People, everyone's like, oh, I've got ADHD. No, brother, you've never practiced concentrating in your fucking life. You have what you have practiced for. This ADHD that everyone has, it's just called fucking 2025. Because what else are you going to... You're on TikTok, you fucking... Every 30 seconds, this is ADHD. TikTok is ADHD. It's the full... You want to be cured? Delete the app. You know, it's actually not that complicated sometimes. But if you practice, if I promise you right now...
You just cured ADHD.
I cured ADHD.
Stop the medication.
Hashtag viral. Just delete TikTok. It is a little bit more complicated than that. But like at the core of it...
It does help. It makes a massive difference.
If you just decided right now, from this moment after I get off this podcast, I will only do one thing at a time, you will be a completely different person with a completely different life experience in like a week. They did a study, and I've got to find this study because I listened to it on a podcast, where they were like gauging people's happiness levels and what they were thinking about. And they found that there was like a very startling level of evidence to support people that were thinking about something other than what they were actually doing in that moment were always unhappier.
Okay, because they weren't present.
They weren't present. They were like at work thinking about something else. Even if it was something happy, they were less happy. Your entire life experience, the quality of your life will be 100% dictated by your ability... be impacted by your ability to be present.
Well, it's a big one.
It's huge.
And it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. And I learned a technique a few years ago that is just focus on what you're actually doing. You're walking, focus on every time your foot touches the ground.
Yeah.
Feel the ground.
It's that simple.
Yeah, and so it's not this thing you have to do meditation. It's just, okay, I'm touching the table now. What does the table feel like? I can't think about much else apart from the table. And there's little tricks you can do where, I don't know if you've heard the one where you think about the back of your head.
No, but I just
think about the back of your head and it's almost impossible to think about anything else.
I'm trying to think about something else. I think I'm like, I also heard another one, a really good one the other day. I think it's an Eckhart Tolle thing, and you say, when your brain's like really going off, say, brain, what are you going to think of next? And then brain shuts the fuck up.
Was that in one of his books?
I had someone repeat it on one of my calls, but she said it was an Eckhart Tolle trick.
Okay.
So yeah, when your brain's like, brain, what are you going to think of next? And then brother's got nothing to say. It's like your boyfriend when you say, where you been? He's like, yeah, now he's got nothing to say, huh? Me acting like my boyfriend isn't a perfect angel, but like, you know, past men.
Past men. What I want to actually ask you is, obviously you've dealt with a lot of men. You've worked with them very closely. Mm-hmm. What is the main thing that stands out and that sort of all of them sort of struggle with? Because there's always a pattern to, I feel like, specific genders. Mm-hmm. Male and female have different patterns, and it's normally the same. What is a pattern in men that you find?
I'll go with the one that first came to the top of my head as soon as you asked the question, and then I'll think about if I have others. But the first one I thought of is men will go through life just being like, just doing the next thing, taking on 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 the next thing. And then all of a sudden they will collapse and not cope. And then they'll be like, whoa, what the fuck happened? And then that's when they'll go get help, right? Going back to what you said earlier. And the analogy I use is, if you build a 1-story house, you can't just add 10 stories on top of that house without building supports for that building to be able to handle the additional weight. But you'll go from being a little boy to being in high school, being on swim team, playing footy, academics, and then you get a girlfriend, and then you get a job, and then you have kids or whatever. You're adding all of this weight to your responsibility pile, because as a man, responsibility is a core element of who you are, and they're never bringing in supports to handle that. They're not working on their nervous system. They're not bringing in more coping mechanisms. They're not building in more rest. They're not developing new habits or new routines to support all the additional load they're taking on in their lives. And then they fall apart and they feel like they've failed, as opposed to realizing you wouldn't go to the gym and try to squat 200 kilos without any training.
Yeah.
You'd be like, that's fucking dumb. Of course I hurt
You wouldn't
myself.
go every day and put 20 kilos on top and on
Correct.
top.
But emotionally, that's what you guys do. You
Yeah.
take on the weight of the world, and then when you collapse, you think, I failed, rather than, well, you just didn't plan for this properly. And that's like a big part of what I do, is like bringing the nervous system and the mindset and the lifestyle. It's the everyday training to actually support the life they want to build. Rather than even that, the billionaires, how many of them end up like divorced and sick?
Yeah, 100%.
Because they're cool. They might have made it. They made it to that point, but they didn't build in the supports and they didn't build in the supports to handle the weight that they took on, you know? So that's a really big one. Another is definitely what everything I've already said about probably never heard of the nervous system. If they have heard of the nervous system, they don't understand how to regulate or understand their emotions. That could be from the extreme of kind of feeling like they have no emotions, or having too many emotions, whether it's anger, anxiety, whatever. That's another really common one. Amongst successful men, sex drive issues. Like a lot of men that get really like successful and busy, at least with the clients I've attracted, like again, I imagine there's probably is two extremes, like men who are hypersexual at that level, but everyone that I've worked with in that space predominantly have a lot of issues with like there's no sexual energy left. They're redirecting. Again, when we think about like back in the day, just the level of success people were seeking, I think, was also different. Like, you know, men weren't killing themselves to get up in the world, but because of the way the economy is, you know, it's never been harder to get ahead than for our generation ever. We're like the first generation is doing worse than our parents in most cases, you know? And I think the strain of that really impacts a lot of men, and I see that show up in sex drive a lot, or vice versa sometimes, like when we go to the emotional regulation thing, so common ways men will regulate their emotions, masturbation and porn, like just as a way to like, oh.
Yeah.
Like they're not horny. They don't want to fuck their missus, but they'll masturbate just to like, oh, just the brain turns off. They relax. They'll scroll, drink weed, especially among successful men more weed. Like they'll start to realize that alcohol's bad, but they'll justify weed. And maybe weed's not bad. It's not about it being bad or good, but it's more, that's their way to switch off and relax because they don't know how to otherwise.
That's what you're using it for.
Yeah.
The foundation one got me, because you don't really think about that. Like, as you're saying now, I was thinking back to myself.
Yeah.
And I think for me, challenges were deadly for me.
Yeah.
Because you put yourself in a state to achieve a goal of a 50-day challenge, and you achieve that goal, and you push your body pretty hard because you've gone from lazy, eating shit, probably not training, to do this challenge where you're like, I want to change my life. But your foundations weren't there.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have gone from 0 to 100. Do the first thing, then do the second thing. And that's what I'm trying to create now, even with the stuff I'm doing, is everything that we get taught through social media and stuff like that shows perfection. You think you have to do it perfect. 75 hard, for example. If you've gone from overweight, eating shit, not reading, not meditating, not drinking much water, don't feel disheartened when you fall short on a 75 hard.
Yeah.
Because you have to read 10 pages, drink a certain amount of water, train twice a day.
Yeah.
But people get hard on themselves. I'm like, what I want to do is actually create something where it's more, just do something.
Yeah.
You got a checklist? Just do 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Get that tick on there. And as you get a little bit more, you will naturally start to do more of it.
Yeah.
Instead of reading one page, you're like, oh, I smashed out this page today. Let me do 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a positive feedback loop versus a negative feedback loop. So I have an online community where, so in it, there's like course and a program and all sort of different topics, and then there's like a discussion section similar to like a Facebook page, and I ran a challenge in there at the start of the year. But when I run challenges, it looks like this, right? Here's the topic. For example, social media use. We got everyone to post their screen time and their pickups every week, and it was reduce it. Find your, I think the exact question was, what is one thing you can do better with technology based on where you are at? The second one, we talked about mood and food, What is one thing you can do to change your diet to slightly improve it? It might be stop skipping, just look at where you're at and pick one thing that goes a little bit further, And you're bang on, like when we look at the science of why this is important, I think, again, there's a lot of, like social media will say, Goggins it, and then if you, shoot for the moon, and if you fail, you like you land in the stars. For most people, especially if you struggle with motivation and consistency and self-esteem, that's actually the worst thing that you could do. Because reward prediction error, which is something they've researched with learning, shows us that, so dopamine is a neurochemical that's released that helps us with motivation and drive. It makes us want to do things. And it's, again, inbuilt evolutionarily to keep us alive. And essentially what they found is if you're expecting to do something and you do it, dopamine gets released. If you're not expecting to do something and you do it, you get extra dopamine, like, wow, look how good I did. If you're expecting to do something and you don't do it, you drop below baseline with dopamine.
Oh, wow.
Right? So when you're constantly failing because you set this task of perfection and you're not hitting it exactly, you are literally making your biology make it harder for you. Your dopamine keeps dropping below baseline and you feel shit about yourself and your body is working against you to start again. When you just do 1% better than yesterday, small realistic goal, and you do it, dopamine gets released. You do it again, dopamine gets released. At the same time, you're building self-trust. Oh, I did it once. I did it twice. I did it 3 times. You're starting to feel good at yourself because it's momentum. Car's been in the garage, can't start pushing it down the hill. It gets faster and faster when it gets more and more momentum, right? So for most people, that's where you really, really want to be, where you're more being like very realistically pushing yourself forward a little bit at the time, very much like how you would physically train. Your physical body just will not let you do something stupid without an injury.
100%.
And you need to bring the same mentality to the way that you load mental challenge. And that's a very big part of, like, especially in the online community where it's like you're dealing with a group of people at the same time. I'm very big to be like, where are you? What are your values? What are your goals? What are your personal challenges?
Without comparing to other people.
Based on that, what's the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Because again, so many of us, you and I might watch the same TikTok video and it could be the perfect advice for me and the worst advice for you. Doesn't make it bad advice.
Is that depending on where you're actually at?
And who you are and what you value. Because I value health, say you value fun. For you, drinking's a good idea. For me, it's not. Doesn't make it right or wrong, good or bad. If you value fun over health, drink to your heart's content. If you don't care what happens to your health, do drugs, do whatever it is that it's about what, and again, your goals in life. For example, go back to the story I told about myself. Coming on this podcast is great. I enjoyed it. I wanted to do this for you. But I'm in a season of my life where me and my partner want to have kids soon. He's just started a business. I'm building my business. There's not enough hours in the day for me to do the things that I need to do. And right now, this was not a good choice for me.
Yeah, and it took you 2 hours to get here.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's it just was not objectively on its own. This is a good decision. Get to catch up with Peter. I love a podcast. We get some good content, have a good chat. It's great for social media. There's so many reasons why this is a good idea. If I don't consider my personal circumstance, my values at the moment, the things that I'm working towards, when I consider my personal reality, that's how I should make my decisions. And again, knowledge used to be power. I don't believe that is the case anymore. Knowing what not to listen to, what knowledge to ignore, what not to consume, I believe is now the true superpower of this information age that we live in. Because you cannot integrate and learn everything. And the more you divide your attention and your time and your energy, the less you will accomplish. And that is one of the...
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Think about it. You got 24 hours in a day. If you try to do 24 things, how well are you going to do those 24 things?
Yeah, Shocking.
If I do one thing all day, how fucking good am I going to do that thing? It's just facts.
So knowledge isn't power. And what did you say?
I don't believe anymore knowledge is power.
Yeah.
I believe the true power today is in learning what not to consume.
What to avoid.
What to avoid.
So even it could be something simple as songs. Certain songs, if you look into frequencies and vibrations and stuff like that, certain songs you should not be listening to
Yeah.
because it naturally lowers your vibration.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's a good one, that one. I've never heard that before.
It's even like food, right? We always look at like, oh, it says gluten-free. It must be healthy. But read the ingredients. What is in it?
Yeah.
You know, like
There's 55 ingredients.
You got to learn what, in this day and age, with all the opportunity, all the information, all the ease of things, it's all about knowing what not to do.
And sort of not getting attracted to the next best thing.
Correct.
And I've noticed even with myself and a lot of people around me, you start with one thing, just say it's a business, and you start in crypto. You start crypto, and another advertisement comes up for, I don't know, e-commerce. Oh, that's a good idea. You stop your crypto, e-commerce. You're doing e-commerce now. And then buying businesses comes up online. Fuck, that's a good idea. I can buy businesses. You just go to that. And you just keep going next.
Yeah.
What I had to do was sit back and say, what do I choose to focus on now? Okay, it's business. I don't care what ad comes up, what I get promoted to me, what I'm scrolling and flick past. It's hard to do because you get sucked into it sometimes. You're like, oh, let me just look into it. But you can't, because I caught myself going from one thing to the next. And yes, it does help because I now know about these other things. I can have a basic conversation with someone because I've learnt the basics. But I didn't master any of them.
Not accomplishing anything. Really.
I didn't accomplish anything except some knowledge. But that knowledge only helps me in conversation. But I'm still where I was 5 years ago.
You started, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, again, this is an evolutionary phenomenon. It's called explore versus exploit dynamics. So again, evolutionarily, we have an innate desire to explore. Again, the species wouldn't have survived if we weren't like, walking and like, oh, that's a new berry, or I've never gone down that street before, or we never would have developed and created all the things we created if we didn't have an innate desire to explore. But evolutionarily, our world and our evolution hasn't caught up to one another. So we now live in a world where following your biological urges will only land you in terrible places of no success, because everyone is stuck in explore. They're dopamine chasing because dopamine feels good. It's motivating. We keep going. But in today's day and age, the success is in knowing when to stop exploring and when to start exploiting. And exploit being, I've explored a bit. I've now decided, as you said, the business is the thing for me. And now I'm going to focus all my energy on just exploiting this thing as much as physically possible. And then timing when I would ever start to explore again, in what capacity. But again, these days, the people that stay focused on the one thing and work on that for the longest period of time, it's like that whole podcast stat that everyone likes talking about. Like, once you've done like 30 podcasts, you're just in the top 3% of podcasts just because you kept going.
I think, I think it's even lower than that. It was like 20 or something like that.
I've heard that
nothing.
lot. Yeah. So it's that concept,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, I love when themes just happen accidentally through a conversation, but I feel like we've spoken about this. It's just like, we live in a world that this body and this biology was not designed for. So you need to learn about this body, this biology, this psychology, and you need to implement things to make it work within this world. And that's my belief of why we are like the most unhappy, the most sick, the most whatever, because we've just reached a level that we've never reached before, and most people don't know how to handle the equipment yet. And that's what I look at with what I do, is teaching people how to actually thrive in this world, not just survive.
Yeah.
Because that's what we were built for surviving. But in this world with this much opportunity and choice, you will not thrive if you keep following your same biological urges.
Well, it's like something I read today as well. There was a meme that came up. Sorry, I missed your text. My brain was only built for picking grapes and hunting. Something like that. Yeah. And it's like, when you think about it, the technology is so advanced now that our bodies and brains weren't built to do this sort of thing.
And then it freaks me out.
Yeah, that is scary. And it's even worse. There's a new one coming out.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's going to be like an an employee where you'll give it a task and say, because ChatGPT now, you'll say, make me a marketing campaign. It'll give you the information. But what you'll be able to do eventually is say, this is my business, run 3 marketing campaigns for me, attach your credit card to it, and it will run the campaigns for you. If one works better, it'll put the money towards that one, and it'll bring you back a report.
It's amazing and frightening at the same time.
It's terrifying. It is terrifying.
Did you hear about, I don't know if this is true, I think it is, because I don't really like Mark Zuckerberg, but I'm pretty sure Mark Zuckerberg was talking about how, or Joe Rogan was saying how apparently they tried to, ChatGPT tried to copy itself.
We're not trying to delete it.
Because they realized they were trying to delete it. That is how we get that's Terminator. Everyone go back and watch that.
That's true. I think that's true.
Yeah, that happened.
Because they tried to delete, I think it was ChatGPT 3.
And
when they deleted it, it just kept copying itself back again.
And I was listening to the Mark Zuckerberg, Joe Rogan podcast. He was saying the problem is they've got to be really careful about the initial commands they gave it. So I think they gave it a command like, keep yourself going at all costs.
Like the prompt they gave.
Like that when they build the actual software, there's certain prompts and limitations they build in. And they must have said something like, keep going at all costs. So it's like, it's like duplicating itself and hiding itself from. It's fucking scary because it has an intelligence, But I don't know. My honest human feeling towards it is frightening, but the framing that I take myself to, because it's much more resourceful, is, that's probably what our parents thought about computers and phones. And to a degree, it was true. There are certain things that are scary with all these things. There is damage and stuff that we're doing. But you just have to know at every point in time, Y2K, they thought the computers were going to kill them then too. You know what I mean? That's just, we've always thought those things, and I think it's normal to have those inclinations, but you got to try your best to control the controllables and trust that we've always figured it out. But don't be
naive.
Don't be naive. Don't be dumb. Don't just take the steroids and don't ask questions. Be in a world like today, be informed. And make informed decisions, fully understanding the consequences, and set yourself up to thrive, or don't be surprised when you barely survive.
I think it's a good way to end the podcast.
Mic drop.
That's good. No, I also say thank you for coming. That was good. I didn't expect it to. I was actually good. We sort of stuck to the same sort of
we just
topic.
Went. Yeah, it just happens. I love when that happens. And I appreciate...
You introduce yourself 40 minutes in.
So good. The conversation, the chat's good when it's like, should we actually tell people who I am?
Who is this girl?
Yeah. They'll figure it out at some point. But yeah, thanks for listening and thanks for having me.
100%. Thank you for coming.